The roar of the rain nearly drowned out the desperate knocking at Zach Harrington's front door. Clutching a towel to his damp hair, he hesitated, wondering who would be out in this storm at 9 on a Friday night. His 5-year-old daughter Lily was finally asleep after an hour of bedtime stories, and the last thing he needed was a visitor waking her up. The knocking grew more insistent. Sighing, Zach tossed the towel onto the back of a kitchen chair and crossed his small apartment, the floorboards creaking beneath his bare feet. He flicked on the porch light and opened the door. A woman stood there, soaked to the bone, mascara streaming down her face. Her expensive-looking blouse clung to her skin, and despite the state she was in, Zach immediately recognized her as Jade Reynolds, whose face had been plastered across business magazines and local newspapers. The millionaire tech entrepreneur who'd recently moved to their small town of Maplewood. "Miss Reynolds?" he asked, confusion evident in his voice. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "Can I come in? I think he followed me." Without hesitation, Zach stepped aside, allowing her into his modest apartment. He quickly shut and locked the door behind her. "Who followed you?" he asked, grabbing a clean towel from the hallway closet and handing it to her. "My ex," she said, accepting the towel gratefully. "Ryan, he showed up at my house. I managed to get away, but I think he's looking for me." She dabbed at her face with the towel. "I'm so sorry to barge in like this. Your apartment was the first one with lights on, and It's okay," Zach assured her, though confusion still clouded his features. "Let me get you something dry to wear. Wait here." He disappeared into his bedroom, returning moments later with a faded gray t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants. "They'll be too big, but they're dry." Jade accepted the clothes with a grateful nod. "Thank you, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this." Zach directed her to the bathroom, then moved to the kitchen to put on a pot of coffee. This was surreal. Jade Reynolds, tech genius with an estimated net worth of over $50 million, was in his bathroom changing into his worn-out clothes. The same Jade Reynolds whose company had revolutionized sustainable energy storage, standing in his tiny apartment that he could barely afford on his carpenter's salary. When Jade emerged from the bathroom, Zach was struck by how different she looked without the polished veneer of wealth. Her dark hair hung in damp waves around her shoulders, and without makeup, she appeared younger, more vulnerable. His clothes engulfed her petite frame. "Coffee," he offered, holding up a chipped mug. "That would be wonderful," she said, taking a seat at his small kitchen table, careful not to wake Lily, whose bedroom door was slightly ajar across from them. "So," Zach began, placing the mug in front of her, "want to tell me why one of the richest women in the state is knocking on my door in the middle of a rainstorm?" Jade wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Ryan and I broke up 6 months ago. He was controlling, verbally abusive. When things started getting physical, I ended it." She took a sip of coffee. "But he doesn't accept that it's over. He's been calling, sending messages. Tonight he showed up at my house drunk and angry." "Did he hurt you?" Zach asked, his voice low and serious. Jade shook her head. "No. Not tonight, but he tried to force his way in. I slipped out the back and ran. I don't even have my phone." Zach nodded, processing this information. "You should call the police." "I've tried that route," she said, a hint of bitterness in her voice. "Ryan's family has connections. The restraining order I filed mysteriously disappeared from the system. The police reports were misplaced. Money and influence work both ways in this town." A small voice interrupted their conversation. "Daddy." Both adults turned to see Lily standing in the doorway of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes sleepily, her favorite stuffed rabbit dragging on the floor beside her. "Hey, sweetheart," Zach said softly, moving to lift his daughter. "You should be in bed." "Who's that?" Lily asked, pointing at Jade. "This is Miss Reynolds," Zach explained. "She's just visiting for a little while." Jade smiled at the child. "You can call me Jade. What's your name?" "Lily," the girl replied shyly, burying her face in her father's neck. "I'm 5 3/4. "That's a very important age," Jade said solemnly. "And who's your friend?" She gestured to the stuffed rabbit. "This is Mr. Hops," Lily said, her shyness fading slightly as she held up the well-loved toy. "He protects me from the monsters under my bed." "That's a very important job," Jade agreed. Zach bounced Lily gently in his arms. And now it's time for both you and Mr. Hops to get back to sleep. School tomorrow, remember? As Zach carried Lily back to her bedroom, Jade took the opportunity to look around the apartment. Despite its small size and obvious age, it was clean and lovingly maintained. Photographs of Zach and Lily covered one wall at the beach, building a snowman, blowing out birthday candles. There was no sign of a mother in any of the pictures, and Jade wondered about the story there. When Zach returned a few minutes later, she found herself asking, "Is it just you and Lily?" He nodded, sitting back down across from her. Her mom left when Lily was 2, said she wasn't cut out for motherhood. His voice held no bitterness, just a matter of factness that spoke of acceptance. "It's been just us ever since." "You're doing a wonderful job," Jade said sincerely. "She's lovely. She's everything," Zach replied simply. He glanced at the clock on the wall. "You're welcome to stay here tonight. The couch isn't much, but it's safe." "Thank you," Jade said, relief evident in her voice. "I'll figure everything out in the morning." But morning brought new complications. Jade awoke to the sound of Zach moving quietly around the kitchen, preparing breakfast for Lily. Sunlight streamed through the apartment's small windows, making the modest space seem warmer, more inviting. "Morning," Zach greeted her, flipping a pancake. "Hope you like blueberry, it's Lily's favorite." "Smells amazing," Jade said, sitting up and running a hand through her tangled hair. "Is there anything I can do to help?" "Just relax," he assured her. "Coffee's ready if you want some." Lily emerged from her room, already dressed for school in a purple jumper and striped leggings. "Jade," she exclaimed, clearly delighted that their visitor was still there. "Are you having breakfast with us? If that's okay with you," Jade replied with a smile. "Yes," Lily clapped her hands. "Daddy makes the best pancakes in the whole wide world." Jade helped Lily set the table while Zach finished cooking. The simple domesticity of the scene was strangely comforting after the terror of the previous night. For a moment, Jade could almost forget the reason she was here. That illusion shattered when a harsh knock sounded at the door. Zach tensed, spatula frozen mid-air. "Lily, why don't you go brush your teeth before breakfast?" The little girl, sensing the sudden shift in atmosphere, looked between the adults with concern but obeyed, disappearing into the bathroom. "Could be anyone," Zach said, but the tightness in his voice betrayed his suspicion. "Jade." A male voice bellowed from outside. "I know you're in there. Your car's parked a block away." Jade's face drained of color. "It's him. It's Ryan." Zach set down the spatula and moved toward the door with purpose. "Stay here." "No, Zach, you don't understand." "He's dangerous," but Zach was already opening the door, positioning himself squarely in the threshold. Ryan Barnes stood on the porch, expensively dressed despite the early hour, his handsome face contorted with anger. "Where is she?" Ryan demanded, attempting to look past Zach into the apartment. "You need to leave," Zach stated firmly, his voice calm but brooking no argument. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you? Get out of my way. I need to talk to Jade." "She doesn't want to talk to you," Zach replied, not budging, "and you're trespassing on private property." Ryan laughed, a hollow sound devoid of humor. "Do you have any idea who I am, who my family is in this town? I don't care if you're the mayor's son or the King of England," Zach said evenly. "You're not coming in and you're not talking to her." Ryan's face flushed with anger. "Listen, you nobody. I could buy and sell this entire building. I could have you evicted by noon. Now step aside before I make you regret it." Zach didn't flinch. "Threats won't work here. Leave now or I'm calling the police." "The police?" Ryan scoffed. "My uncle is the police chief." "You really think they'll take your side over mine?" "I think they'll be interested in the security camera footage," Zach bluffed, gesturing to the corner of his porch where no camera actually existed. The mention of potential evidence made Ryan hesitate. His eyes darted to the empty corner, then back to Zach. "This isn't over," he growled. "Tell Jade I'll be watching. She can't hide forever." With that, he turned and stalked away. Zach waited until Ryan got into his luxury car and drove off before closing and locking the door. When he turned around, Jade was standing in the kitchen doorway, her face pale but resolute. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not many people stand up to him like that." Zach shrugged. "I don't like bullies, Daddy," Lily called from the bathroom. "Can I come out now?" "Yes, sweetheart," Zach replied. "Breakfast is ready." They ate in relative silence, Zach and Jade exchanging concerned glances over Lily's head as the child chattered about her upcoming day at school. After breakfast, Zach checked the time. "I need to get Lily to school and then I have a job site to check on," he said, concern etched on his face. "Will you be okay?" Jade nodded. "I'll call a car service and go back to my place. I need to get my phone, contact my security team." She hesitated. "I can't thank you enough for everything." "It's nothing," Zach insisted, helping Lily put on her backpack. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Jade said quietly. "They wouldn't have." Zach walked Lily to school, his mind preoccupied with thoughts of Jade. When he returned to his apartment, she was gone, having left a note thanking him again and including her personal number. He tucked it into his wallet, certain that their brief intersection was over. People like Jade Reynolds didn't typically remain in the orbit of struggling single fathers for long. But 3 days later, as Zach was finishing up work at a renovation site across town, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Jade. Ryan's been parked outside my house all day. Security can't do anything because he's on public property. I hate to ask, but could you call me?" Zach stood amidst the sawdust and construction materials, staring at his phone. Despite his better judgment, he dialed the number. Jade answered on the first ring. "Zach, thank you for calling back. Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Yes, but I'm scared," she admitted. "Ryan knows all my security protocols. He helped design them when we were together." Zach ran a hand through his hair. "Have you considered leaving town for a while?" "I can't," she replied. "I have the foundation gala this weekend. It raises millions for children's hospitals, and next week I have board meetings that can't be postponed." She paused. "I know this is a lot to ask, but would you consider staying here for a few days? I have plenty of room and I'd pay you, of course." "Pay me?" Zach echoed, slightly offended at the suggestion. "I'm sorry that came out wrong," Jade backpedaled quickly. "I just meant that I know you have work and Lily to consider. I don't want to impose on your life." Zach considered his options. He did have Lily to think about, and bringing her into a potentially dangerous situation was out of the question. But he couldn't shake the memory of the fear in Jade's eyes when Ryan had shown up at his door. "Let me talk to Mrs. Chen next door," he said finally. "She watches Lily sometimes. If she can take her after school until I pick her up in the evenings, maybe we can work something out." "Thank you, Zach," Jade said, relief flooding her voice. "I'll text you the address. The gate code is 5294. That evening, after arranging childcare with his neighbor, Zach packed a small overnight bag and drove Lily to Mrs. Chen's apartment. "Why can't I come with you, Daddy?" Lily asked, her lower lip jutting out in disappointment. Zach knelt to her level. "Because I'm helping a friend who needs me right now. And Mrs. Chen is going to take good care of you. I'll pick you up before bedtime, I promise." "Is it Jade?" Lily asked perceptively. "Is she in trouble?" "Sort of," Zach admitted, "but I'm going to help make sure she's safe." Lily considered this, then nodded solemnly. "Like how you check my closet for monsters." "Exactly like that," Zach agreed, relieved at her understanding. He kissed her forehead and thanked Mrs. Chen before heading to his truck. Jade's house turned out to be a sprawling modern mansion set on several acres just outside town. Zach felt distinctly out of place as he punched in the gate code and drove up the winding driveway in his weathered pickup truck. The disparity between their worlds had never been more apparent. Jade met him at the door, dressed casually in jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Despite her attempt at normalcy, the strain of the past few days showed in the dark circles under her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said, leading him into an expansive foyer. "I've prepared a guest room for you upstairs. Has Ryan been back?" Zach asked, setting his bag down. Jade nodded. "He drove past twice today, no direct contact, but..." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I can feel him watching, waiting." Zach's jaw tightened. "Have you eaten? I'm starving." The change of subject seemed to relieve some of Jade's tension. "Not yet. The kitchen's fully stocked. I can make something." "Let me," Zach offered. "Cooking helps me think." In the sleek, state-of-the-art kitchen that was 3 times the size of his entire apartment, Zach rummaged through the refrigerator and pantry, assembling ingredients for a simple pasta dish. Jade sat at the island, watching him work. "You seem very at home in the kitchen," she observed. Zach shrugged. "When it's just you and a 5-year-old, you learn to cook or you eat a lot of cereal for dinner. Lily's father and her chef," Jade said with a small smile. "What else do you do?" "I'm a carpenter by trade," Zach replied, dicing an onion with practiced efficiency. "I specialize in historic renovations. I was working on the old Thompson place when you texted." "That beautiful Victorian on Maple Street?" Jade asked, surprised. "I've admired that house since I moved here." "It's a special project," Zach agreed. "The woodwork inside is incredible." They don't build houses like that anymore. As they talked, the initial awkwardness between them began to dissolve. By the time they sat down to eat, the conversation flowed easily, touching on their childhoods, their work, and eventually how they both ended up in Maplewood. "I moved here to get away from the Silicon Valley rat race," Jade explained. "I wanted somewhere quieter with a sense of community, somewhere Jade Reynolds could just be Jade." "And instead you got Ryan Barnes," Zach said dryly. Jade grimaced. "We met at a charity event 6 months after I moved here. He was charming, sophisticated. His family has been in Maplewood for generations. It seemed fitting somehow." "When did things change?" "Gradually," she admitted. "He'd make little comments about my clothes, who I was meeting with. Then he started checking my phone, questioning my every move." She pushed her pasta around on her plate. "The first time he grabbed me hard enough to leave bruises, I ended it. That was 2 months ago." Zach's hand tightened around his fork. "And the authorities have done nothing." "His family practically owns this town," Jade said wearily. "His father's the biggest real estate developer in the county. His uncle is the police chief. His cousin is a judge. But you're Jade Reynolds," Zach pointed out. "You're not exactly without resources yourself." "Money only gets you so far against entrenched local power," she replied. "Especially when you're the outsider." After dinner, they moved to the living room, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the sprawling property. Night had fallen, and the security lights cast long shadows across the manicured lawn. "I should check in with Lily," Zach said, pulling out his phone. Jade watched as his face softened during the brief video call with his daughter. The tenderness in his interaction with the child stirred something in her, a longing for that kind of simple, unconditional love. "She's lucky to have you," Jade said after he hung up. "I'm the lucky one," Zach replied, pocketing his phone. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." "What about her mother, if you don't mind me asking?" Zach leaned back against the couch. "Caroline and I were young, too young probably. When she got pregnant, we tried to make it work, but she was always restless, always wanting more than our small life could offer." He shrugged. "One day she said she couldn't do it anymore, packed a bag and left. Last I heard, she was in California with some tech entrepreneur." "I'm sorry," Jade said softly. "Don't be. It was hard at first, but it forced me to grow up to be the father Lily deserves." He glanced at Jade. "What about you?" "No kids in the picture," she shook her head. "I always thought there would be time for that later. Build the company first, change the world, then settle down." A wistful smile crossed her face. "Now I'm 34 and wondering if I've missed my chance." 34 is young," Zach assured her. "And you've already changed the world with your work." They talked late into the night, the ease of their conversation belying the short time they'd known each other. When Zach finally retired to the guest room, he found himself thinking about Jade in a way that went beyond his role as her protector. The next 3 days fell into a pattern. Zach would leave early to take Lily to school, then return to Jade's house. During the day, he accompanied Jade to her office in town, acting as an unofficial bodyguard. In the evenings, he would pick up Lily, bring her to Mrs. Chen's, then return to Jade's for the night. Ryan made his presence known through occasional drive-bys, and one particularly unsettling delivery of dead roses, but he never directly approached when Zach was present. The foundation gala was fast approaching, and Jade was visibly stressed about the prospect of facing Ryan in such a public setting. "He'll be there," she said on the 4th night, as they sat on her back patio watching the sunset. "His family always attends." "Then I'll be there too," Zach stated simply. Jade looked at him in surprise. "The tickets are $5,000 each," Zach whistled low. Well, then I guess I'm your plus one because I'm certainly not buying my own ticket. Jade laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Zach Harrington, are you inviting yourself to be my date? I'm inviting myself to be your protector, he corrected. Though the idea of being her date wasn't unpleasant, Jade's expression turned serious. You've already done so much. I can't keep disrupting your life like this. You're not disrupting anything, Zach assured her. Lily loves her evenings with Mrs. Chen. The woman lets her have ice cream every night and he hesitated. I like spending time with you. The admission hung in the air between them, charged with possibilities neither was ready to voice. I like spending time with you too, Jade finally replied, her voice soft. More than I should, probably. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Zach thought about leaning in, closing the distance between them. But the moment was broken by the shrill ring of Jade's phone. It's my assistant, she said, checking the screen. I need to take this. As Jade walked inside to take the call, Zach remained on the patio, watching the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the trees. He was playing with fire, he knew. Jade Reynolds lived in a different world, one of galas and board meetings and million-dollar decisions. His world consisted of school lunches, carpentry jobs, and making rent each month. Any attraction between them was temporary, born of unusual circumstances. Yet as the days passed, that attraction only grew stronger. Jade revealed herself to be not just the polished businesswoman the world saw, but a woman with doubts, fears, and dreams that resonated with his own. She made Lily laugh with silly voices during their video calls. She listened intently when he talked about his work. And sometimes, when she thought he wasn't looking, she watched him with a longing that mirrored what he felt. The night of the gala arrived, and Zach found himself adjusting a rented tuxedo in front of the guest room mirror. He'd arranged for Lily to spend the night at Mrs. Chen's, knowing the event would run late. You clean up well, Jade's voice came from the doorway. Zach turned, and the sight of her stole his breath. She wore a deep blue gown that shimmered with her every movement, her dark hair swept up in an elegant style that exposed the graceful curve of her neck. You look. He searched for a word adequate to describe her and failed. Incredible. A faint blush colored her cheeks. Thank you. Ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be to hobnob with the town's elite, he replied with a self-deprecating smile. The gala was held at the historic Maplewood Hotel, a grand old building that had been recently restored to its former glory. As Zach escorted Jade into the ballroom, he was acutely aware of the curious glances and whispered comments that followed them. Jade Reynolds was a notable figure in town, and her appearance with an unknown man was clearly causing a stir. Ignore them, Jade murmured, her hand resting lightly on his arm. They're just surprised to see me with someone who isn't Ryan. They made their way through the crowd, Jade stopping frequently to greet benefactors and colleagues. Zach stood at her side, a steady presence as she navigated the social waters with practiced ease. It was nearly an hour into the event when Ryan appeared, moving toward them with determined strides, a crystal tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. Jade, he said, his voice carrying just enough to draw the attention of those nearby, you look stunning as always. Ryan, she acknowledged coolly. I didn't expect to see you here, he laughed, the sound sharp and artificial. The Barnes family has supported this foundation for generations. Of course I'm here. His gaze shifted to Zach, hardening. And I see you brought your friend. Zach Harrington, Zach introduced himself, extending a hand more out of a desire to demonstrate civility than genuine goodwill. Ryan ignored the outstretched hand. Harrington, the handyman. Carpenter, Zach corrected mildly, specializing in historic restoration. How quaint, Ryan sneered, taking a sip of his drink. Jade always did have a soft spot for charity cases. Jade's posture stiffened. Ryan, I think you've had enough to drink. Perhaps you should call it a night. The night's just beginning, darling, Ryan replied, stepping closer to her. We need to talk in private. No, Jade stated firmly. We have nothing to discuss. Ryan's face darkened. You're making a scene, Jade. People are watching. Let them watch, she replied, her voice steady despite the slight tremor Zach could feel in her hand. I have nothing to hide. Ryan leaned in, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that only Jade and Zach could hear. Do you really think you can replace me with this nobody? Do you think I'll let you humiliate me like this? Zach stepped between them, his voice low but resolute. That's enough. Walk away, Ryan. For a tense moment, Ryan seemed poised to escalate the confrontation. But a glance around the room at the curious onlookers and the security personnel positioned near the doors seemed to give him pause. This isn't over, he warned, his gaze locked on Jade. Not by a long shot. As Ryan stalked away, Jade exhaled shakily. I'm sorry about that. Don't apologize for him, Zach said, placing a protective hand on the small of her back. Are you okay? She nodded, though the encounter had clearly rattled her. I just need some air. They slipped out onto a balcony overlooking the hotel's gardens. The cool night air was a welcome relief after the stuffiness of the ballroom. Jade leaned against the stone railing, taking deep breaths to steady herself. I hate that he still has this power over me, she admitted. That he can make me feel so small. Zach moved to stand beside her. He doesn't have power over you, Jade. He's trying to take it, but you're not letting him. She turned to face him, their proximity suddenly intimate in the moonlight. How do you do that? Do what? Say exactly what I need to hear, she replied softly. Zach reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Maybe I'm just saying what I see. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met, Jade, not because you're successful or wealthy, but because of who you are underneath all that. Her eyes searched his face. And who am I underneath all that? Someone kind, he said, his voice low. Someone who takes time to really listen. Someone who makes my daughter laugh. Someone who sees me not just what I do or don't have. The space between them seemed charged with electricity. Jade's gaze dropped to his lips, then back to his eyes. Zach, she whispered, his name a question and an invitation. He closed the distance between them, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was gentle at first, then deepened as she responded, her arms winding around his neck. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. That was. Jade began. Long overdue, Zach finished, resting his forehead against hers. A discreet cough interrupted the moment. They turned to find one of the event coordinators standing at the balcony entrance. Miss Reynolds, they're ready for your speech, she said apologetically. Jade nodded, smoothing her dress. Thank you, I'll be right there. As the coordinator retreated, Jade turned back to Zach. We should talk about this later. Definitely, he agreed, offering her his arm. But right now, you have a room full of donors waiting to hear from you. Jade's speech was passionate and eloquent, focusing on the foundation's work, providing cutting-edge medical care to children regardless of their family's ability to pay. Zach watched her from the side of the stage, pride swelling in his chest at her poise and conviction. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of champagne, dancing, and stolen glances. Ryan kept his distance, though Zach occasionally caught him watching them with thinly veiled anger. It was well past midnight when they finally made their way back to Jade's house, the tension between them palpable. Would you like a nightcap? Jade asked as they entered the foyer. I'd like to continue our conversation from the balcony, Zach replied honestly. Jade smiled, a mix of nervousness and anticipation in her eyes. Let's go to the living room. They sat together on the couch, closer than they had on previous evenings. Jade had kicked off her heels and the formal atmosphere of the gala had dissipated, leaving just the two of them. So, Jade began, that kiss. That incredible kiss, Zach amended with a small smile. Incredible, she agreed, her eyes soft in the dim light. But Zach, we need to be realistic. Our lives are so different, he nodded slowly. I know, you're Jade Reynolds, millionaire tech entrepreneur. I'm a single dad who makes furniture for a living. That's not what I meant, she protested. I don't care about that, don't you? He challenged gently. Because I do. Not because of pride, but because I need to know that whatever this is between us can withstand reality. I have Lily to think about. I can't let her get attached to someone who might decide our life is too small, too ordinary. Jade reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. Zach, these past days with you have been the most real I've felt in years. Do you know what I see when I look at you? A man who loves his daughter fiercely, who stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult, who sees beyond status and wealth to the person underneath. She paused, vulnerability clear in her expression. A man I could fall in love with if I let myself. Zach's heart hammered in his chest. And are you letting yourself? I think it's too late to stop it, she admitted softly. He leaned forward, kissing her with a tenderness that quickly gave way to deeper passion. When they separated, both were breathing heavily. Stay with me tonight, Jade whispered against his lips. Not as my protector, just as yourself. Zach's response was to kiss her again, a clear answer to her invitation. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Jade's bedroom, casting a golden glow over the rumpled sheets. Zach watched Jade sleep, her face peaceful in repose, her dark hair spread across the pillow. Last night had been a revelation not just physically, but emotionally. They had talked for hours between moments of passion, sharing dreams and fears, laughing and sometimes crying as they revealed themselves to each other. Jade stirred, her eyes fluttering open to find him watching her. "Good morning," she murmured, a smile spreading across her face. "Good morning," he replied, leaning down to kiss her softly. "Sleep well, better than I have in months," she admitted, stretching languidly. "What time is it?" "Almost 9, Zach said. "I need to pick up Lily soon." A shadow crossed Jade's face. "Ryan's still out there, Zach. I don't want you or Lily in danger because of me." He propped himself up on one elbow. "We need a more permanent solution than me playing bodyguard. Have you considered legal options outside of Maplewood? State police, maybe?" "My lawyer is looking into it," she said, sitting up and pulling the sheet with her. "But these things take time." "Time we might not have," Zach pointed out. "Ryan was furious last night. He's not going to just back off." As if summoned by their conversation, the harsh sound of breaking glass shattered the morning calm. Zach was out of bed instantly, pulling on his pants. "Stay here," he ordered, but Jade was already reaching for her robe. "It's my house, Zach. I'm not hiding." They made their way downstairs together, following the sound of continued destruction to the kitchen. Ryan stood amidst broken glass and overturned furniture, a baseball bat in his hand, rage contorting his features. "How touching," he spat when he saw them. "The millionaire and the handyman. Did you fuck him to make me jealous, Jade? Is that what this is about?" "Get out of my house, Ryan," Jade demanded, her voice steady despite the fear Zach could see in her eyes. "Or what?" Ryan challenged, taking a menacing step forward. "You'll call your security team." "I disabled your alarm system. The cops, they won't get here in time." Zach positioned himself in front of Jade. "Put down the bat, Ryan. You don't want to do this." "Don't tell me what I want," Ryan shouted, his grip tightening on the bat. "She's mine. She's always been mine." "I was never yours," Jade stated firmly from behind Zach. "And I never will be." Ryan's face twisted with fury. He lunged forward, swinging the bat wildly. Zach pushed Jade aside, ducking under the swing and tackling Ryan around the middle. They crashed into the island, sending a vase crashing to the floor. The bat clattered away as the two men grappled. Despite being leaner than Zach, Ryan fought with the desperate strength of obsession. He landed a solid punch to Zach's jaw, momentarily stunning him. Ryan scrambled for the bat, but Jade was quicker, kicking it across the floor and out of reach. "It's over, Ryan," she said, her phone in her hand. "I'm calling the state police. They're not under your family's thumb." "Nothing's over," Ryan snarled, lunging toward her. Zach recovered in time to grab Ryan's ankle, sending him sprawling. In one fluid motion, Zach was on his feet, hauling Ryan up and pinning him against the wall, forearm pressed against his throat. "Listen to me carefully," Zach growled, his voice low and dangerous. "You're going to leave here. You're going to leave Jade alone. Forever. Because if you don't, I will make it my personal mission to ensure you regret it. Do you understand?" Ryan's eyes bulged, his face reddening from the pressure on his throat. He managed a jerky nod. Zach released him, stepping back but remaining alert. "Get out, now." Ryan straightened his rumpled shirt, his bravado returning despite his defeat. "This isn't over," he warned, but the threat sounded hollow even to his own ears. "Yes, it is," Jade stated, holding up her phone. "I've been recording this entire encounter. I also have footage of you breaking into my house. The state police are on their way, and this time, your family connections won't help you." The sound of sirens in the distance seemed to finally penetrate Ryan's rage. With a last venomous glare, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Jade sagged against the counter, the adrenaline leaving her system. "Are you okay?" she asked, moving to examine the bruise forming on Zach's jaw. "I'm fine," he assured her, pulling her into his arms. Are you? She nodded against his chest. I am now. The aftermath unfolded more smoothly than either had anticipated. The state police, uninfluenced by local politics, took Ryan into custody for breaking and entering, vandalism, and assault. Jade's video evidence, combined with the security footage from her property, was damning. Ryan's family, embarrassed by the public nature of the incident, declined to intervene. A restraining order was quickly granted, this time with no mysterious disappearances from the system. 2 months later, Zach stood in Jade's kitchen, now fully restored after Ryan's destruction, making pancakes while Lily sat at the island, chattering about her day at school. Jade moved around them, setting the table, occasionally pausing to drop a kiss on Zach's shoulder or ruffle Lily's hair. Mrs. Peterson says my drawing of our family is the best in the class, Lily announced proudly. I drew Daddy and me and you, Jade, and our house. Which house did you draw, sweetie? Jade asked curiously. This one or the apartment? Lily looked confused. This one, of course, we live here now. Zach and Jade exchanged a glance over the child's head. They hadn't formally moved in together yet, though they spent most nights under the same roof. Zach had been hesitant to give up his apartment, conscious of maintaining some independence despite their deepening relationship. Lily, Zach began carefully, flipping a pancake. Jade and I haven't decided about living together permanently yet, Lily's brow furrowed. But you love each other, and I love Jade, and Jade loves me, so we should be together always. The simple, childish logic struck both adults silent for a moment. She has a point, Jade said finally, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. We do love each other. Zach set down the spatula, turning to face Jade fully. We do, but it's a big step. I know, she acknowledged. And I understand your hesitation. Your life with Lily is precious and you don't want to disrupt it. It's not just that, Zach admitted. I still worry sometimes that this is temporary. That one day you'll wake up and realize that you could do so much better than a carpenter with a beat-up truck and sawdust permanently embedded in his clothes. Jade stepped closer, resting her hands on his chest. Zach Harrington, when will you understand? You are what better looks like to me. You and Lily. This life we're building, all the money in the world can't buy what I feel when I'm with you. Even when I snore, he asked with a small smile. Even then, she assured him, rising on tiptoes to kiss him lightly. Does this mean we're going to live here forever? Lily interrupted, her expression hopeful. Zach looked at Jade, seeing in her eyes the same certainty he felt in his heart. What do you think, Miss Reynolds? Ready to share your mansion with a couple of Harringtons? I think, Jade replied, her smile radiant, that this house was never really a home until you two came into my life. Is that a yes? Lily pressed, practically bouncing in her seat. Jade laughed, the sound of pure joy filling the kitchen. Yes, Lily, it's definitely a yes. Later that night, with Lily fast asleep in what was now officially her bedroom, Zach and Jade stood on the back patio, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. His arm was around her waist, her head resting on his shoulder. I never thought I'd find this, Jade murmured. This kind of love. This sense of family. Neither did I, Zach admitted. Especially not with someone who could buy and sell my truck 1,000 times over, she laughed softly. Your truck is safe, though I might suggest an upgrade for safety reasons. Always looking out for us, he said, kissing the top of her head. That goes both ways, she reminded him. You stood between me and danger when you barely knew me. Best impulsive decision I ever made, Zach replied. As they stood together under the vast night sky, both were struck by the unlikely path that had brought them here, a desperate knock on a door during a rainstorm, a stand against a bully, a growing connection that neither had expected but both now cherished above all else. Different worlds had collided, and from that collision something beautiful and lasting had emerged. I love you, Zach Harrington, Jade whispered into the quiet night. I love you too, Jade Reynolds, he replied, drawing her closer. More than I ever thought possible. And in that moment, with the woman he loved in his arms and his daughter sleeping safely nearby, Zach knew without doubt that some differences like those of wealth and background were ultimately meaningless when measured against the things that truly mattered. Courage, kindness, and the kind of love that transforms two separate lives into one shared journey.